Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update. The Afternoon Update with Lin Li Fu.
Welcome to Good Tech, where we spotlight the inspiring ways technology meets purpose, showcasing innovations and ideas that are driving real impact for social good. I'm Nazirul Asrar. In today's digital world, a single forwarded message can spark confusion, spread scams, or even mislead entire communities. But what if there was a way to fact-check that message before it spreads? That's where CheckMate SG comes in as a volunteer-driven, AI-assisted WhatsApp fact-check service. It gives quick, skeptic, or credible signals to help Singaporeans separate fact from fiction and scam from truth. Since its launch in 2023, thousands of Singaporeans have already used it to verify suspicious content, and the team has been steadily expanding its reach with new AI upgrades and more volunteers. Joining me to share more is Tan Bing Wen, founder of CheckMate SG. Welcome to the show, Bing Wen.
Yeah, hello. Good, nice to be here.
Okay, now, Bing Wen, what was the defining moment that made you decide to create CheckMate SG?
Yeah, actually, there wasn't really like a one defining moment per se. I guess it was during COVID, right? And back then, I was kind of learning how to do a bit of coding. Just nice, there was a lot of like vaccine-related news that people will often spread. Some of it is real, some of it is not so real, right? But they typically spread it on WhatsApp and all that. And back then I thought, wouldn't it be good if instead of just forwarding to your friend or your friend group, and it might not even be real, right? Why don't we have some kind of number that you can forward in a message to, and then it gives you an indication whether this can be trusted or not. So that was the core idea behind it. I guess I built something, didn't really try and take it forward until like almost 2 years later. I kind of met this community of tech people, and then I decided to pitch this idea to them, and then there were enough volunteers, and then we started the whole initiative in 2023. So that's how it got going.
I see. Well, in that case, I am curious though, why did you build it around WhatsApp instead of platforms like Telegram?
Yeah, good question. Because I think where we were coming from is that because actually the most vulnerable in our society, typically, I would say the elderly segment, especially the young seniors, right? These are the groups that still use digital kind of tools, but they might not have been like grown up in a kind of digitally savvy kind of era, right? And where are they, right? Where are these people? They are mostly using WhatsApp. They're not really using Telegram. So I think we saw WhatsApp as like the common denominator between everybody. Basically everyone in Singapore has WhatsApp, right? Whereas Telegram is typically more towards the younger folks. So we started with WhatsApp first.
Okay. Well then, let's dive into CheckMate itself. Walk us through how it works from a user forwarding a suspicious message to even the response that they receive.
Yeah. Okay, so imagine you encounter something on your phone, right? You go online and you see something and you're not sure whether, to trust this or not. Mm-hmm. All you need to do is you can take a screenshot, right? Or you can copy, if it's a text message, you can copy it. Oh. And then you go to the CheckMate, because we have a WhatsApp number, right? So you open the chat with us on CheckMate, on WhatsApp, and then you paste in the content, either the screenshot or the text, and that's all you need to do, right? And then you wait about a minute, sometimes maybe up to 2 minutes, and the AI system behind CheckMate would then do all the checking for you and then reply you with a verdict. Oh. And it also explain to you a bit about why this is a scam or this is true, so on and so forth.
Okay.
And not just that, right? So we also have this network of volunteers behind the scenes, right? So every time you get back a reply from the AI, most of the time that's that. But on very rare occasions, sometimes the AI might be inaccurate. A lot of y'all know about hallucination and all that. In that case, our volunteer community, they will check the AI response, they will downvote it, and then we will send a correction if a lot of them downvote it. So that's how it works.
Oh, okay. Well, I used it myself. I tried it out, right? And it's actually very fascinating to me because it's like, it's very seamless. You just have to send in that suspicious message or even a picture, I think, and there's already a response from that. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Okay, let's roll back the months. So during GE 2025, did CheckMate SG see a spike in traffic, and what kinds of messages or claims were people most concerned about?
Yeah. So there was a bit of a spike, but we also noticed that it was somewhat less than the previous PE, right? The presidential election last year. Yeah, but I think PE had a bit more. Okay. GE, the interesting thing was that, there was a bit more, but there was a spike immediately after the election. Actually, not during the election period itself. I don't know whether it has to do with some of the... I think they passed the law recently for this particular GE, right? That was on targeting deepfakes and all that. So maybe they had an impact. So that was something that was very interesting, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then, looking at CheckMate SG, right? It's designed to give people quick answers, not lengthy reports. If that's the case, how do you strike the balance between speed and giving enough context so users understand the response?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And I think that's also how we kind of differ a bit from like the traditional fact checkers. Because traditional fact checking, it's all about giving very detailed and well-researched replies. For us, our ethos is to actually do a very quick one.
Okay.
But it still has to be accurate, of course, right? That's the main thing. But how we see it is that even if we did like a 3-page, very detailed fact check with evidence and all that, the thing is that if you put that out on WhatsApp, nobody's going to read it. Nobody's going to read everything, and they're going to miss a lot of the points, right? So what we try to do is to really give a very short and simple, yet accurate response.
Okay.
Have a bit of education element to it to explain like why is this a scam and so on and so forth.
Right.
And that's it for us. Because firstly, it's a matter of practicality, right? If we come out with something that's so long, it's also going to be more costly from the AI perspective. And also a matter of like, people are not going to read a super long piece also. So, bearing in mind that context, that's why we kind of make some of the design decisions that we do.
Okay. Well, then I recently found out that you rolled out a generative AI on top of human review. So what does this upgrade allow you to catch that earlier versions might have missed out on?
Yeah, so before the generative AI system was out, right, the whole checking process was a crowdsourced one.
Okay.
Basically, anytime somebody sends in something, it's broadcast to our network of volunteers and they all vote on it. After enough votes come in, then we reply accordingly. But I think this particular way of doing things has kind of some limitations. Number one, it's a bit slow, right? So sometimes it takes hours to get enough votes to reply. Right. And also, I think the main thing is nuance, right? Because if you have a system that's based around voting, you can only reply like based on certain categories that we have, right? Because they are voting on this category set. So we can only tell people this is a scam, or this is true, or this is like misleading, but we can't go further than that. Right? We can't really produce a good response further than that. So I would say that the main difference between the AI version now and the previous version is that currently there's more nuance. You can actually handle situations that aren't so black and white. I think that's a real difference. The other thing is that AI is actually very good at catching those kind of scams that, for example, the scammers like to, when they send a URL, right, they like purposely change one letter that looks something similar, but it's actually a fake symbol. Actually, AI is very good at catching these. Whereas it's a bit more challenging for humans, but of course, our volunteers are also not so, they are able to do it, but for the most people, right, you might miss that, but AI is very good at catching that.
Okay, well, then I'm just going to ask this, right? Do you think when you compare between the human touch as well as this AI, which one do you prefer personally? Like, how do you perceive the changes?
I guess the AI response to me is a lot better. Of course, ideally, I would love it if a human were to respond to everything that somebody sent in, right? But it's just not feasible at the kind of scale that people send things in because we want to give it on demand and fast. So bearing that in mind, then it's either of two options, right? Either we give a very simplistic category-based reply or we give an AI written but actually pretty more informative and educational reply. And I think the latter is definitely what we as a product think is better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, building up on that, though, I do want to find out what's been the toughest part about building and managing CheckMate SG.
Wow. Honestly, everything about CheckMate is pretty tough, right? To actually like build something like this up from scratch. It's not easy, and actually, basically, it's like a tech product, right? And we are running it, and it's really operational. It's been running. We have to like deal with bugs sometimes. We have to fix issues. So all of it is pretty hard. I think one of the biggest challenges is really in finding a business model that can kind of sustain what we are doing. Of course, we want to, provide checks to the community, especially those that are more vulnerable. But the question is how to do that sustainably. And we are trying to solve that business model question right now. Yeah, so that's, I think, the hard part about it.
Okay. Well, looks like we have to dive, obviously, into just what the feedback is like. So beyond the numbers, what kind of feedback or real-life stories that stand out to you? Perhaps someone avoiding a scam or misinformation thanks to CheckMate SG?
Yeah, so we are actually very often at like various road shows. Okay? So we attend like community events to promote it because our target audience is generally the young seniors, right? So but every time we go to a roadshow, people really like the concept, right? They try the product, they think it's very useful. I think one story that stood out to me was when, I think one auntie, can't remember at which roadshow, she came up to me and said that, and she actually got scammed before. And she said that she felt like with something like this on her phone, right, she felt a lot safer, right? That there was at least this way to go about like checking whether stuff is real or not. So I think that was quite heartening. in terms of like actual stories that people know that, okay, CheckMate helped them to avoid being scammed, I don't think we really have heard of them yet, because it's hard to know the counterfactual, right? Because how do you know that you'll get scammed if you didn't have this? I think it's hard to say. But another interesting thing is that a lot of also aunties in my neighborhood, they come up and share that, with CheckMate, they managed to determine that, this particular flyer that they got in the mail, maybe it's saying like, got this crab promotion at a restaurant. They managed to check, they found out from CheckMate that it is true, right? And then so they willing to go and try and go down to the place and get the deal, right? So that's another interesting thing, because this is actually an example of where CheckMate confirms that something is true. So it doesn't just confirm that things are false, it also confirms that things are true. And yeah, so those stories are quite common actually.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I have to ask though, are you able to determine what is the demographics of people who use CheckMate SG?
So we try and collect as little data as possible because of privacy kind of considerations lah. So we only get like their age range, and only very recently we started collecting. But actually our target audience and most of the events that we go to, and that's the main channel for which we get people onto using CheckMate, right? Through our events. So most of the people that are attending these events are typically the young seniors group. But of course we also have a group of like more tech savvy people that came across CheckMate from either like the AI realm or the cybersecurity realm. So that's another kind of audience, and so it's between these two groups, I would say. Maybe it's like 60 towards elderly, 40 towards this other group.
Okay. That's interesting actually. I mean, when we look at scams, right, you would think that more of the senior audiences would be the ones that would be majorly using these kind of tools. But to hear you say that it's also affecting a specific of young generation as well, that's surprising to us. Now, Bing Wen, sustainability is another challenge. Running AI costs money, so how are you planning to keep this service free while scaling it, and what's been the hardest part about making it sustainable?
Yeah, so just now I talked about the challenges on the business model side, right? I think one of the difficulties that we find is that we are kind of neither here nor there, right? So when we go out for like philanthropic, pitches and funding, then people tend to see CheckMate as, this is like so much like a tech company, right?
Right.
Yeah, why don't you go for like venture kind of routes? And then when you go to like kind of the more for-profit, VC kind of routes, then we are told like, it's too much of a public good, right? It's hard to make money from this particular domain. Like people don't really expect that they're going to have to pay for fact checking, so on and so forth. So maybe it's a kind of framing issue lah. We need to see how best to fit the kind of context that we are going up to talk about CheckMate. So really, I see it as either of two paths, right? How to continue to fund CheckMate going forward. Because now it's almost like entirely self-funded actually, right? So, but going forward, I think it's either charitable kind of path, or a kind of, so now we are really a non-profit, right? So there's no kind of like the venture path is closed. We are non-profit. But the other path is like, if we can find a clever enough business model that can kind of cross-subsidize some of this provision of this kind of service to the vulnerable, I think that would be very good. Perhaps it can be a model around the data. So these are things that we are trying right now lah. That's how we are trying to grow the initiative also.
Right, I see. Okay, well, looking ahead, right, Bing Wen, what's next for CheckMate SG? Are there new features or perhaps partnerships that could bring CheckMate SG to more users?
Yeah, so all along we've been very focused on this checking kind of value proposition, right? Like we check for you. So increasingly, we are also thinking of whether or not we should move more into the whole education landscape, like scam education, info literacy education. I think there's some demand for that there. And I think that's a very valuable way to get more, because not only are we providing this AI service, we're actually collecting quite a bit of interesting data about what are the very common scams and like fake news that is spreading in the public sphere, right? So some of this data is often quite useful could be useful to companies or even academics or even government, right, per se. So we are always thinking about more ways to generate good impact from this whole ecosystem that we have set up, and the data is one of them. So yeah, we want to expand on that. How to, let's say we can build a game, right, like an educational game based on some of the up-to-date and live scam data that we are getting. That could be one example. So these are some of the things that we are trying to do. I think even longer term, there's this whole idea that CheckMate should be a more decentralized kind of outfit, right? Because now it's still very like, we are, few of us are running the thing and it's still very centralized. Ideally, it's this kind of information architecture, right, should be more decentralized. That could mean, some even Web3 kind of concepts, right? We could even go into that eventually, but that's still a very far away thing from where we are right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then, we're running out of time here. So very quickly, Bing Wen, where can our listeners find CheckMate SG if they want to try it out for themselves?
Yeah, so all you need to do is to go to the website, right? CheckMate.sg. There's a big orange button there. You just press and then it will open up your WhatsApp. And then from there, there's an onboarding, right? And then thereafter, once you have anything that you get, you're not sure whether it's true, you can just send it in. And if you find it useful, feel free to share with friends and family. So right now we actually give a small kind of every month there's 5 free checks. So you don't get scammed every day, right? So you can use that, and hopefully it's helpful lah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Bing Wen, for all those insights today.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great to be here.
All right. That was Tan Bing Wen, founder of CheckMate SG. And that is all for Good Tech with me, Nazirul Asrar.
Money FM 89.3